Okay, hello collective. We're gonna go on ahead and start talking about the second trauma series topic, which is going to be self-trauma. The reason we're choosing self-trauma before any of the other ones is because, and it really thinking about it, it should have been the first, but we chose spiritual because the team decided to. Regardless, it's important to work on self-trauma because all trauma comes from self. Even though the things happen externally, if they were internalized, witnessed, and or experienced, it wouldn't have an effect on you. So we have to first really get down with who we are, with the self, healing what we experienced, healing what we deem uh, to be right or wrong or to be harmful or helpful. We have to really ground ourselves and see the neutrality in it, not to neutralize it, but to come to terms with it. A lot of times when you deal with trauma, especially in therapy, it's very externalized. It's very much like, so, all these people, you need to go talk to them, you need to do this, you need to do that. When it's really all that needs to happen is a more focus on the self to understand why you deem these things to be traumatic, to see what the trauma has restricted you from feeling like doing. It's so easy, and it happens all the time where people are like, oh, I'm gonna look at my trauma as from an external point of view and blame everything on anything that's happened externally from me because it makes me now feel this way, and if that didn't happen, then yada yada yada. Well, if you didn't internalize it that way first, it wouldn't have had that effect. So what we're really doing here is we're getting rid of the curse that religion has put over all of us, which is scapegoating. It's the reason why Jesus, quote unquote, died for our sins. It is why anytime anything happens in the Bible, you blame the devil or Satan. It's scapegoating. And that's the big curse that's over people. Whether you're religious or not, it's something that has been built into our DNA over eons of evolution, centuries of evolution. And it's time to break that down and internalize things as what it truly is instead of projecting it outward. That projection that happens is not healthy, it's not helpful, and it really just keeps people stuck within that loop. It makes people afraid to communicate with others, and it keeps you from as well being open and transparent with yourself. There's a lot of topics about the self trauma that we're going to talk about. I don't have really notes for this. I was just going to wing this intro video and just let spirit talk to me that way. But whenever we start digging into those videos, we are definitely going to have topics. But we're going to talk a lot about internalization, observing instead of absorbing. We're going to look a lot at this, like just how you can change your reactions, looking at the emotions and how you feel. We might even go a little bit deeper into the emotional spectrum and talking about how different emotions are really just the same, just perceived and received differently. Um, as we are receivers, and that's all we do is we receive, and then we perceive, and all these things, right? But it's so important because it's the traumas inside of you that are keeping you from doing things. It's the scapegoating as well, and scapegoating is a self trauma thing as well. Most people won't talk about it or actualize it in that way, but when you scapegoat and blame other people, it's traumatizing because you usually are the one that gets in trouble the most, or you were the you're the one kid in school that, like, if everyone's talking, then you got called out, right? And it's that same wound that scapegoating operates off of, because instead of just saying, oh, it's not just me, it's everyone else, it's shifting the focus away from the actual problem, because by putting focus and blame on someone else, it causes that problem to get bigger and bigger, and then you end up with a mountain, a volcano that's really erupting rather than an anthill that you began with, right? So we have to work through these things, and again, the way that the spiritual community is ran right now, not in the entire spiritual community, but the conscious community, I should just keep it with that. How it's ran, especially on media, is very scapegoaty. Now, of course, there's people that don't, scapegoat and they take responsibility for their actions, but the majority of the ones stepping the foot in the door are very apt to put blame on people and to be like, oh, well, since I'm reminded about this person and how bad that person is, that's going to ruin my mood and all these things, right? And that's unfortunately the wrong thing to do. And I'm going to be the first to say it. That's what, if you want to call it the devil, if you want to call it the Luciferians, if you want to call it the Draconians, whatever you want to call it, the Illuminati, the higher forces, that's what they want. That's the divide and conquer. How do you divide something? You separate it. You separate yourself from the problem by making yourself seem one way. Now you're dividing yourself. You're easier to conquer now, because now you've divided yourself away from all the energy that's come at you. That's really just the same energy, just showing a different spectrum, a different color of it. And it bombards you and keeps you trapped in this box. And I'm going to be the first to say this as well. Those that participate in the scapegoating game, where they deem one person completely innocent in the regards of anything, are playing the role of the devil. Even if you don't purposely do something, it is impossible to not do anything to anyone, whether it's voluntary or not. Do not fall for that lie. Do not fall for that trap. That is how you start going down that pipeline. It seems innocent enough, but that's literally how the devil plays his games. Okay? You have to understand these things, and no one talks about it because it's such like a touchy subject to mention. But if you know me, especially if you're not new here, I don't pussyfoot around these topics because these things need to be talked about. You came to the actual right place if you want to heal, if you want to evolve, if you want to show brighter colors of yourself and remove these limiting barriers. You've come to the right place, because we will talk about these very hard subjects, these subjects that I've had to sit through and digest. And though I might just be 25 years old, I've been doing this ever since I was 8 years old. So this stuff isn't new to me. This is things that people who are older than me don't really grasp or figure out till their older years, where they're no longer surrounded by all the high intense energy. And I'm gonna be the one to start talking about it, because I even though I use my voice and vocalize for others to, no one else really seems to care, at least care as much as I do. And that's not an egoic thing, that's just simply an observation, because everyone's so focused on everything else. And you can't, if you overload yourself with all these external topics and not what you desire to do, you get sucked into a whirlpool. You'll forget who you are. And then when you forget who you are, you're lost. You get confused. You get sucked into wrong groups. You then have a hard time disassociating from people and places and things, and end up growing attachment disorders because you feel like you need a place to be, even though you're right where you need to be, right? And for those who are serious about this healing journey, for those who are really wanting to evolve and step up their healing game, especially for the ones who are healers, even if you're in like the like an actual therapist or however you're wishing to step up these games, take notes from me, because I'm going to tell you things that people won't talk about. And it's because they're various touchy subjects. Again, like even like when I was going through it, denial was heavy. These things were not easy for me to understand and digest, but I had to. And it's not saying, oh, I have to, so everyone in the house has to too. No. This is strictly for the ones who are really wanting to see things in a fresh lens. Everything's copy and paste out there. We need more truth and less coddling. We've had a lot of coddling, but it's time for us to stand up and walk again. It's time for us to move down the spiritual path of life. And the self traumas that we have on ourselves, the fact that we have self-limiting beliefs, and we curse ourselves and damn ourselves every day, almost, not all of us, but some of us do. It's so The word unfortunate comes because the word unfortunate holds so much weight when you really feel it, when you think about it, when you just let it hit you. It's unfortunate to see so many people throw away their lives due to not knowing how to heal from these things, from having the idea to be like, I want to get rid of these boundaries, but I can't. And these are things that I'm constantly working through as well. So don't think that I know everything either. I'm only going to be giving you my observations and what I can get from spirit team and what I get from meditations and all these things, what I get from all of the most high and all, like, so we're all going through it. But when we're going through it, it's important to talk about it. Transparency is such a hard thing to do in this day and age, with toxic masculinity being a thing and men not feeling like they can be honest with their feelings, and women feeling like they have to be uberly submissive or they'll be called whores or bratty, and all these like awful things that go on in this world, in this realm, due to a lack of transparency, a lack of openness, a lack of self boundaries, even having trauma where you have either too tight of boundaries or too loose of boundaries, where you let people either use you as a doormat or your door is so locked that you don't let anyone in. These self traumas that you hold tightly because of the lack of apology given to by someone, or the fact that you got too many apologies and they seem fake. The fact that you run back to see these people, these are all traumas that rely within the self, these self dependencies, these fears of can I do it or not? All these fears of even just living, these fears of showing your art, your craft, are all traumas rooting from deep within. And this is such an important topic because we're here to create, we're here to live, we're here to digest the world around us and create and live as one. But we can't do that until we remove these boundaries from ourselves. And it's not going to be instantly done, but I do need light shed on this topic. This is, I need light. Like, it's not even just me, it's the divine, it's the entire galactic force. It's the whole celestial, it's the whole heavenly abode force that comes to me when it comes to talking about these subjects. It's so heavy and so important to talk about because of how evolutionary it would be. It's not revolutionary because we're not going to be walking around in circles. We're not going to be revolving. We're going to be evolving. We're going to be moving forward, growing. It's going to change the chemical balances inside of you. Just listening to these recordings, even if you don't believe in them or trust in them or even care about them, is going to change you on a molecule level. I don't even I don't even say that word right, but it's going to change you on such a micro level. It's for you. It's for all of us, and it's important to have out. So many people, they miss out on their life. They miss out on the joys. They miss out on relationships. They miss out on adventures, and they make it to their later years and regret all of it, and they can't do anything because they're either like just brittle or not feeling to it. They don't have the energy. They're homebound, however. And it's from someone that grew up with um elderly parents who always wanted to travel but couldn't due to how exhausting it is. I seen it firsthand how detrimental it is to the human psyche, and not only just that, but those around you, when it comes to it. And it's all relating with the self, where there were things in the past, being bullied and all these things that we hold so tightly onto. And of course, these subjects, all these other subjects, will be talked about as well. But the main topic of it is self trauma, because it all roots from inside you. It's all you. And then we can look at it as, as where it came from after it hit you, where, who sent it towards you, right? You received it, but from where? Then we can focus on that. But first we need to know who we are and the traumas inside of ourselves, the things that we hold on to so tightly, and understand why we hold on to it tightly, understand how to release that grip, and then we can start talking about these other subjects, right? So I hope you all stick around for this one because this one's going to be very interesting. It's going to be um, a lot. There's going to be a lot of videos on this one. I can just tell you. So with that being said as well, we're gonna have the spiritual trauma and the self trauma videos uploading. They, I don't know how that schedule is going to go. I'm not even going to talk about it. I was going to talk about the schedule because I like to. I'm not even going to talk about it. I don't know how it's going to go. Some days I might upload both. Some days I might upload one. Some days I might upload zero. It all depends on what's going on that day, right? I'm not going to make a schedule for it. But we're going to talk about a lot about self trauma and how we can restrict other traumas and other forces from outside of us to affect us. We're going to be talking about self-worth, all the things involving the self and how it projects externally. And then whenever we start talking about these other subjects, I can use the self-trauma series as like a go back to this for a reference point if you need to heal from these things. um, and even talking about self-trauma is going to go into spiritual trauma, because as you know, everything comes from you, and like when you're experiencing these spiritual events, it's for you. So healing from this self-trauma is understanding and overstanding like why you had to go through these things, and not looking at it as a punishment but seeing it as a, oh, this is just a warning for me so I can move forward. um but I hope you all are excited as I am for this, because this self-trauma series is going to be a roller coaster of emotions. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I can already feel it. But thank you all again for the support on this series. I love you all so much. To Moon and back tenfold and forever. All the links are in the description. But I love you all so much, and I will see you all later.